Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is the place where we don't just, skim the headlines.
Not at all.
We take a stack of sources, we're talking research papers, guidance texts, the heavy stuff, and we really unpack them to uncover the patterns that actually matter.
And the goal is always the same.
Exactly. We are here to make you the smartest person in the room. Or, considering who we're talking to today, maybe the most effective person in the classroom.
It's good to be back. And you are right. Today isn't just about general knowledge. We are stepping into a very specific and I'd say very high-stakes environment.
Early childhood care and education.
Yeah.
ECCE.
That's it.
Exactly. We are holding a specialized guidance text in our hands today. It's titled Dignity and Positive Discipline in Early Childhood Education.
A very direct title.
It is. Now, before anyone tunes out thinking this is just for, kindergarten teachers, I really want to frame this. We are talking about how human beings learn to regulate their emotions.
We're talking about how they learn right from wrong.
And how the first 5 years of life basically, they wire the brain for the next 80. It's foundational stuff.
It really is. And this document, it's fascinating. It focuses on the South African context, which gives it a really specific legal weight we have to get into.
Right.
But the principles, they are completely universal. We're talking about child rights, psychology, and the fundamental concept of human dignity.
Here is the thing that struck me immediately when we started prepping for this deep dive.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this, you're likely studying to become an ECCE practitioner.
That's our target audience today, for sure.
You're signing up to shape the minds of the next generation.
Mm.
But this source material, it throws down a gauntlet. It basically says, everything you think you know about discipline, it might be wrong.
That's the core tension, isn't it? It's the gap between how you were likely raised,
Your personal history.
your own childhood, and how you must practice as a professional. There's a bright line between those two things.
And that is a heavy lift. It really is.
Yeah.
Because we aren't just asking students to learn a textbook, we're asking them to unlearn. Well, to unlearn their own childhoods in some cases.
That's a powerful way to put it.
The source material, it explicitly mentions this traditional view of child rearing.
Right. And we need to be honest about what that view is. In many cultures, and look, this isn't just in South Africa, this is global.
Oh, absolutely.
There is this deep-seated belief that children are, wild things that need to be tamed.
Right. Broken in like a horse.
Yes. The belief is that a child will only get in line or, become a respectful adult if they are feared into submission.
The old spare the rod and spoil the child
Yeah.
mentality. I think most of us can relate to that on some level. You hear people say it all the time. Well, I was smacked and I turned out fine.
Exactly. And that is the survivor bias talking. The source confronts this head on. It highlights that many people equate respect with fear.
If a child is terrified of you, they're quiet.
And if they're quiet, we think they're good. We mistake silence for obedience. Or for learning.
Or for learning, yes. But the source argues that this instinct, that gut feeling that says you need to shout or hit to teach a lesson, is diametrically opposed to the legal and ethical requirements of the job you're stepping into.
So this deep dive is, in a way, it's essentially an intervention.
I like that.
We're here to bridge that gap. We're moving from a history of control and punishment to a future of dignity and guidance. And I want to be really clear. This isn't just because it's nice or soft.
No, absolutely not. This is not about being permissive. We're doing this because the alternative is, first of all, illegal.
Let's start there.
Second, it's unethical. And third, as we'll discuss, it is neurologically damaging to a developing brain.
Okay, so let's start with that first point. The hardest line in the sand. The law. The source material is incredibly blunt here. It doesn't say, try your best not to hit. It says corporal punishment is prohibited. Full stop.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity. We need to look at the legal landscape in South Africa to really understand the gravity of this.
Yeah.
In 2019, the Constitutional Court made a landmark ruling. This was a big deal.
A huge deal. They declared that the common law defense of reasonable chastisement, which was, for decades, the legal loophole parents and caregivers used to spank their kids, was unconstitutional.
What does that mean in plain English?
It means the excuse, I was just disciplining my child, is no longer a defense for assault.
That was a massive shift. It basically said you cannot hit your child, even a little bit, even for discipline.
Correct. And this applies everywhere. It is not just for schools. It applies to ECCE centers, yes, but it also applies to parents in the privacy of their own homes. The source makes it crystal clear. There is no legal justification for physically punishing a child.
I want to push on this a bit because I know there are listeners thinking, okay, but surely the law is about abuse. It's about beating a child. It's not about a tap on the hand.
And that is the single most dangerous misconception a practitioner can have.
Why dangerous?
Because the law doesn't distinguish between a pap and a beat when it comes to the definition of assault, the source defines corporal punishment very, very specifically. It is any physical force intended to cause pain or discomfort.
Intended to cause pain or discomfort. That is a very low bar.
It is, and it has to be, because who decides how much pain is okay?
The adult who is angry at that moment.
Precisely. The adult who has lost control. That is a recipe for disaster. So the ban has to be total. There is no acceptable level of assault.
So let's really get into the weeds here. Let's unpack the list from the source of what actually counts as corporal punishment, because some of these are things I suspect happen in classrooms every single day.
Okay, so obviously we have the direct contact stuff. Smacking, slapping, spanking. The source notes a really disturbing trend of people smacking children under 2 years old. We're talking babies, thinking it teaches them not to touch things.
Which is just, I mean, a baby's brain can't even make that connection.
Not at all. All you're teaching them is that the person who is supposed to keep them safe is a source of pain. That is illegal.
And then hitting with objects.
Yes. Belts, sticks, spoons, shoes. I mean, it sounds medieval, but it happens. That is explicitly outlawed. But then we get into the gray areas where practitioners might not realize they're crossing a line.
Like what?
Pinching. You see a child isn't listening, so you give them a little pinch on the arm to get their attention?
That's corporal punishment.
Yes.
Or shaking a child.
Shaking is a big one. You see a frustrated teacher grab a kid by the shoulders and just give him a rattle, like, listen to me.
That is corporal punishment. It is physical force used to correct behavior. It's also incredibly dangerous physically. Then you have rough handling, pushing, pulling a child to get them into line or to their chair.
You're using your physical advantage over them.
Yes. And here's one that is very common and very insidious: forcing painful physical positions.
What does that look like in practice? In a classroom?
It could be making a child stand in the corner with their hands up for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Their arms start to burn.
Or on their tiptoes. Or making them kneel on a hard floor or on something uncomfortable. You aren't hitting them, so you think it's okay. But you are using their body as a site of punishment. You are inflicting physical discomfort to teach a lesson. That is illegal.
It's interesting because that moves their definition away from violence in the cinematic sense, like a punch, and towards something like, I don't know, using the body against the child.
Precisely. And the source goes even deeper than that into what we might call passive physical punishment. And honestly, this is a section that really hit me hard when I was reading it.
This is where it gets really dark, isn't it?
It does, but we have to talk about it. It talks about neglect as a form of punishment.
And to be clear, we aren't just talking about a busy practitioner forgetting to feed a kid.
Right.
We're talking about withholding care as a weapon.
Yes, intentional withholding. Imagine a scenario. A child, say a 3-year-old, refuses to eat their lunch during the designated time. Maybe they're being picky, maybe they're just not hungry yet, maybe they're upset about something else.
100 reasons.
100 reasons. The practitioner gets frustrated and says, fine, if you don't eat now, you don't eat at all. And they take the food away and let that child go hungry for the rest of the day.
And the source classifies that as corporal punishment.
It is classified as a violation of the child's rights and a form of punishment. You are using their biological need for food to force compliance. It is causing physical discomfort.
What are some of the others it lists?
Leaving a child cold because they forgot their jacket, and you want to teach them a lesson about responsibility.
Listen, a 3-year-old brain is not equipped to learn that way.
Exactly. Or, and this one is just horrific, refusing to change a nappy because the child pooped on purpose out of spite, or is being difficult during changing time.
Refusing to change a nappy. I mean, that's not just punishment. That sounds like a health hazard.
It is. It is profoundly humiliating for the child. It's unhygienic, and it causes very real physical discomfort. Nappy rash, burning sensations. If a practitioner does that to teach a lesson, they are breaking the law. It's that simple.
Wow. And then there's the isolation aspect. The source talks about locking children up.
This is a terrifying reality in some poorly managed centers. Isolating a child in a toilet cubicle. Locking them outside in the heat or the cold. Locking them in a dark room or a storeroom.
Dude, that's like something from a horror movie.
It does, but the source wouldn't list it if it wasn't happening. It happens when practitioners are overwhelmed, under-equipped, and just. They want the problem gone, so they physically remove the child.
But the psychological damage of that must be immense.
It is devastating. For a small child, being isolated like that triggers profound abandonment trauma. It tells their brain, you are alone and unsafe, and the people who should protect you have left you.
So just to be absolutely clear for every student listening, the legal hard line is this. If you were using physical force, pain, discomfort, or the withholding of basic needs like food, warmth, or hygiene to manage behavior,
You are not just a strict teacher,
you are a criminal, you can be arrested.
and you should be. The Children's Act in South Africa is there to protect the vulnerable. And there is no one more vulnerable than a toddler in a care center who trusts you to keep them safe.
But, the source doesn't just want to scare us with jail time. That's not a sustainable motivation, is it?
No, fear is never a good motivator for deep learning.
If you only follow the rules because you're scared of the police, you're probably going to slip up eventually when no one's looking. The source wants to change the entire philosophy of the practitioner.
Right. We need to move from compliance with the law to internalizing dignity.
Okay, let's talk about that word, dignity. It's heavy, it's abstract. We usually hear it in the context of dying with dignity or treating the elderly with dignity. What on earth does dignity actually mean for a 2-year-old who is currently screaming because his banana broke in half?
That is the challenge, isn't it? To make it practical, the source defines dignity as inherent worth.
Inherent, meaning it's built in. It comes with the package.
Exactly. It is factory installed. You don't earn dignity. You don't get more dignity because you sat quietly in the circle today. You don't get dignity because you're the teacher or the principal. You have dignity simply because you are a human being.
So the screaming toddler, in that moment of irrational banana grief, has the exact same amount of dignity as the president.
Yes, unconditionally. And this is where that traditional view we talked about completely collapses.
How so?
Historically, and in many cultures, we operate on a hierarchy. Adults are at the top, children are at the bottom. We think respect is a one-way street. It flows upwards.
You must respect me because I am the adult.
But I don't have to respect you because you are just a child.
We dismiss them.
Yeah.
He's just a baby, he doesn't understand, or she's just being dramatic.
Right. The source flips this entirely. It argues that because children are vulnerable, because they cannot defend themselves, because they cannot articulate their rights or hire a lawyer,
Right.
they require more protection of their dignity, not less.
Wow. That's a profound shift. Their vulnerability increases your responsibility. You aren't their boss. You are the guardian of their dignity.
Exactly. That's the job.
Okay, but let's get practical again. I'm a student listening to this. I'm nodding along. I buy the philosophy. But tomorrow, I'm in a classroom with 20 toddlers, and it's chaos. How do I practically respect a baby? Does that mean I just let them do whatever they want?
No, and that's a crucial point we'll get to. This is not about being permissive, but dignity in practice is about how you interact with them, moment to moment. The source gives us a kind of list of do's and don'ts.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first do was a mindset shift. Treat the child as a person, not an object to be controlled.
Not an object. That hits home. Think about how we sometimes handle babies, especially in a busy center.
We treat them like furniture. We pick them up, we move them over here, we wipe their faces without warning, we change their clothes, often without ever making eye contact or speaking to them. We do things to them, not with them.
So treating them like a person means
What?
talking to them through it.
Yeah. It means narrating your actions. It means asking for cooperation, even from an infant. Okay, I see you have a runny nose. I need to wipe it. Is that okay? Here comes the tissue.
Even if they can't answer yes or no.
Especially if they can't answer, you are modeling respect. You are telling them through your tone and your actions, your body belongs to you. I see you. I'm here to help you, not control you.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are the don'ts, the things that actively strip dignity away?
The source calls this dehumanization. And the biggest weapon of dehumanization in an ECCE setting is shame.
Shame is powerful.
It's toxic, especially for a developing sense of self. It comes out in the language we use. Labels like, you are naughty, you are stupid, you are a bad boy.
What's the problem with saying a kid is naughty? If they just bit someone, isn't that naughty?
The problem is when you say that to a child, you aren't labeling the behavior. You are labeling the soul. The child doesn't hear throwing the toy was a bad choice. They hear, I am a bad person.
And that sticks. That becomes their internal voice for years to come.
It does. It becomes the script they live by. Another form of dehumanization is humiliation.
Public shaming.
Yes. Look at what John did. Everyone, look at John. Isn't that naughty? Or the classic naughty chair in the corner where everyone can see you and know you've done something wrong.
It's devastating. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine if your boss did that to you. Imagine you made a mistake in a presentation and your boss made you stand in the corner of the boardroom while your colleagues just watched you.
What would you do?
I'd quit or I'd punch him. I
Oh,
definitely wouldn't be thinking about my mistake.
exactly. You would feel rage. You would feel humiliation. You would not be sitting there thinking, gee, I've really learned a valuable lesson about spreadsheet formatting. You'd be thinking about revenge or just survival.
Others says that.
Yeah. No, I definitely wouldn't. So why on earth do we expect children to react differently? The source points out something critical here. Even babies experience fear and humiliation. They might not have the vocabulary to say, I feel degraded, but their nervous system, their brain, it registers the social threat.
And when the brain registers a threat, it stops learning. Is that right?
Boom! That is the neuroscience piece in a nutshell. When a child is shamed or frightened, their brain floods with the stress hormone, cortisol. They go into a state of fight, flight, or freeze.
The survival brain takes over.
The survival brain takes over. And the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic, learning, problem solving, and moral reasoning, literally goes offline. It gets bypassed.
So in that moment, they are physically incapable of learning the lesson you were trying to teach.
Correct. You are shouting at a brainstem. You might as well be shouting at a lizard. You'll get a fear reaction, but you will not get learning.
That is a perfect segue into our next section, reframing behavior. Because I know there are listeners right now who are saying, okay, I get the science, but you haven't met the kids in my class. They aren't just making mistakes, they are being naughty. They are biting, kicking, screaming.
This is the most common frustration we hear from students. But the child is misbehaving.
And the source challenges us to basically delete the word naughty from our professional vocabulary. That feels extreme.
It's necessary because the word naughty implies a moral failing. It implies malice.
That the kid is trying to be bad.
Yes. It implies that the child knows the right thing to do, but is deliberately choosing to do the wrong thing just to spite you or to be difficult.
And the source says that's just not true for young children.
The source and all of developmental psychology says that what we call misbehavior in toddlers and preschoolers is usually just development. It's learning in action.
Unpack that. Give me an example.
Okay, a 2-year-old's brain is under massive construction. They literally do not have the developed impulse control in their frontal lobe to stop themselves from grabbing a toy they want. It's not that they don't want to share, it's that the impulse to grab is faster than the thought process to wait.
So it's a can't, not a won't?
Often, yes. They do not have the emotional regulation to stay calm when they are tired or hungry. When they scream no at you, they aren't being rebellious in an adult sense. They are discovering that they are a separate person from you. It's a vital developmental stage called individuation.
So when a 2-year-old repeatedly throws a spoon on the floor from their high chair, they aren't trying to ruin your day.
No, they are a tiny physicist. They are testing gravity, or they are a social scientist testing cause and effect. If I do X, what will this big person's reaction be?
And if your reaction is anger and frustration, you're just confusing the data for them.
You're contaminating the experiment. The source says something that I think is really challenging for practitioners to hear. It says that blaming a child for developmentally normal behavior is a failure of the adult, not the child.
Ouch. That puts the weight right back on the teacher's shoulders.
It has to be there. You are the professional in the room. You are the one with the fully formed frontal lobe. If a child is crying and you start shouting back at them, you are the one having the tantrum. You're just a bigger person having a bigger tantrum.
But what about the kids who seem to be doing it on purpose? You know, the button pushers, the ones who look you right in the eye and then pour the water on the floor.
That's a great question. Usually, that behavior is a cry for connection. A child would rather be shouted at than ignored. Negative attention is still attention.
So the bad behavior is actually a strategy, a clumsy one, but a strategy to get you to look at them.
Precisely. And if we punish them for it, we meet the behavior, but we miss the need underneath. The need was, see me, connect with me. We punish the strategy instead of meeting the need.
And then the source talks about the long-term impact of this fear-based discipline here, right?
Yes. We touched on this with the cortisol and the brain going offline, but let's look at the long game. If you use fear shouting, hitting, shaming, timeouts, you often get immediate compliance. The child sits down. The room is quiet.
And the teacher breathes a sigh of relief and thinks, it worked.
But it's a trap. a dangerous trap. It worked in the short term because you scared them into submission. But what are they actually learning?
They're not learning self-discipline.
Not at all. They are learning external control. The lesson is, I only behave when the scary giant is watching me.
So the moment you leave the room or turn your back.
Chaos. Because they haven't developed an internal moral compass, they've just developed a very sophisticated radar for threats. The source also notes that harshness leads to aggression. Violence teaches violence.
That seems obvious when you say it out loud.
It is. If you hit a child when you are angry, you are teaching them that hitting is how big, powerful people solve their problems when they are frustrated.
So you are basically training the next generation of bullies.
You are. Or you are training the next generation of victims who learn that it's normal for big people to hurt you. Either way, you are sacrificing that child's future character for a moment of peace in your classroom today.
Okay, so we have dismantled the traditional view. We know hitting is illegal. We know shaming is damaging. We know the word naughty is a myth. The students are listening and they're screaming. So what do I do? If I can't hit and I can't shout, do I just sit there and smile while they burn the school down?
A fair question. And this brings us to the solution, the core of the source document. Positive discipline, and we need to bust a myth immediately.
What's the myth?
That positive discipline is permissive discipline.
Thank you. Because I think people hear the word positive and they think fluffy. They think it means no rules, no boundaries, kids running wild.
The source is explicit. Positive discipline does not mean no boundaries. It means firm but caring boundaries.
What's the distinction? Firm but caring.
It's the difference between a fence and a prison wall. A fence is there to keep you safe. It shows you the limit. You cannot go past here because the road is dangerous. It guides you, but it doesn't hurt you. A prison wall is about punishment and control. Positive discipline is about building fences, not walls.
I like that analogy. Okay, so let's open the toolkit. The source gives specific strategies. How do we build these fences?
The first tool is the most boring, but it is by far the most effective. Prevention through routine and a predictable environment.
Boring is good if it works.
It works. A huge amount of what we call misbehavior is actually just anxiety. Children feel safe when they can predict their world. If every day is different, if the rules change based on the teacher's mood, the child feels anxious and unmoored. And anxiety in children often looks like acting out.
So having a solid, predictable routine, snack time is always here, nap time is always here, we always sing this song before we go outside, that actually reduces the need for discipline.
Drastically. If a child knows what comes next, they don't have to fight you for control of the situation. They can relax into the flow of the day.
Okay, tool number 2. The source talks about redirection.
This is the magic wand for the toddler and preschool years. It is so simple and so effective.
Walk us through a scenario, a real one.
Okay, let's say a child, little Sarah, is throwing wooden blocks at the window. Dangerous behavior, unacceptable.
Right, traditional response.
Shout, "No, Sarah," across the room. Rush over, snatch the blocks away, maybe put her in a timeout chair and say, "You think about what you've done."
And Sarah sits there feeling shame and anger, but not really learning anything.
Exactly. Now, the positive discipline response. You intervene calmly. You might need to move quickly to stop the behavior physically, catch her hand, but you do it gently. And you connect before you correct. You get down on her level and you say, "Blocks are for building, not for throwing." Then you redirect.
You give her a yes instead of just a no.
That's the key. Let's see how high we can stack these blocks. Or if you notice she really has a deep urge to throw, because remember, throwing is a developmental schema, they need to explore it, you validate that need.
Right.
You say, "Wow, you have a strong throwing arm. You really want to throw something. We can't throw blocks. They break windows and could hurt someone. Here is a soft ball. Let's throw this into the basket over here."
I love that. You aren't just saying stop. You are saying, I see what you're trying to do. Do this instead.
It's what psychologists call teaching an incompatible behavior. You are giving the brain a new, acceptable instruction that makes the old, unacceptable behavior impossible. You can't throw blocks at the window if you are busy and engaged throwing balls in a basket. You are replacing the impulse, not just suppressing it.
That requires a lot of quick thinking from the teacher, though. You have to be
Yeah.
really present.
It does. It requires you to be an engaged guide, not just a reactive police officer.
Okay, tool number 3 from the source. Emotional labeling.
This goes right back to that brain offline concept we discussed. A screaming child is drowning in an ocean of emotion. They don't have the words for it yet.
So you become their emotional translator. You give them the words.
Exactly. You get down on their level and you become a sportscaster for their feelings. I can see you are very, very angry right now. Your face is all red and your fists are tight. You wanted the blue truck and Tom has it. That feels so frustrating.
Does that actually stop the screaming? Or does it just validate it and make it worse?
It is amazing how often it stops the screaming, sometimes almost instantly. It's the name it to tame it effect from neuroscience. When you help a child label an emotion, the brain activity literally moves from the primitive, reactive emotional center, the amygdala, to the more logical, verbal center, the cortex.
So just giving it a name physically helps the brain calm down.
It does. Plus, the child feels seen and understood. This big person gets me. They're not scared of my big feelings. And that connection is what leads to cooperation.
Fantastic. Tool number 4, modeling.
The old classic, monkey see, monkey do. This is maybe the hardest one. If you want a calm, respectful classroom, you must be a calm, respectful teacher.
The ultimate irony is screaming, "Be quiet" at the top of your lungs.
Exactly. You are being a hypocrite, and children see that instantly. You are the living lesson plan. If you handle frustration by taking a deep breath and speaking calmly, the children in your care will eventually mirror that. It's how they learn.
And finally, let's talk about consequences. Because the source says we shouldn't punish, but we should have consequences. To a lot of people, that sounds like semantics. What is the actual difference?
It is a crucial distinction. A punishment is arbitrary. It's about inflicting pain or deprivation to make the child pay for what they did.
Like, you didn't eat your peas, so no TV tonight.
Right. There is no logical connection between peas and television. It's just an exercise of power. A consequence, on the other hand, is directly related to the action. It's either natural or logical.
Give me an example of each.
A natural consequence is something that happens without any adult intervention. If you don't wear your coat, you will feel cold. Nature teaches the lesson. The adult doesn't have to do anything but offer empathy. You feel really cold, don't you? Let's go get your coat.
Okay. And a logical consequence.
The logical consequence is set up by the adult, but it is respectful, related, and revealed in advance. So you are throwing the sand out of the sandbox. That makes a mess, and it's not safe for people's eyes. If you choose to throw the sand again, you will be choosing to leave the sandbox and play somewhere else for a while.
So it's related. If you misuse the toy, you lose the privilege of the toy for a short time.
Exactly. But here is the catch, and the source is very specific about this. The difference between a logical consequence and a punishment often comes down to your tone of voice.
Ah, the delivery matters.
The delivery is everything. If you say it with anger and sarcasm, right, that's it. You threw the sand, get out of the sandbox now. That is a punishment. You are using the consequence as a weapon.
But if you say it with empathy.
Oh, that's so sad. It looks like you chose to throw the sand again, so now you have to take a break. We can try again later when you're ready to keep the sand in the box. That is discipline. You are holding the boundary firmly, but you aren't shaming or attacking the child.
That is a subtle but powerful difference. It preserves the relationship, even when you're correcting behavior.
And that is the ultimate goal. The source lists the evidence-based benefits of this entire approach. It builds secure attachment and trust between the child and the caregiver.
Which is the foundation for all learning.
It is. It teaches emotional regulation and self-control. It promotes social competence. Children raised this way are better at solving problems. They're more empathetic. They're less aggressive.
So by doing the hard work now, the redirection, the labeling, the patience, you are actually making your job easier in the long run.
Absolutely. You are building a classroom of children who can eventually regulate themselves, rather than a classroom of children who are just waiting for you to look away so they can riot.
Now, we have to get to the final section, and honestly, I think this is the most important part of this whole deep dive. Section 5, the practitioner's inner work.
Yes, because everything we just described, being calm, labeling emotions, redirecting 20 different times in 5 minutes, is exhausting.
It takes so much energy, and let's be real, the source admits this. ECCE is an emotionally demanding job. You are in a room with 20 irrational, developing humans for 8 hours a day. You are going to get tired. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get angry.
The source validates that. It says, you are human. It is not asking you to be a robot or a saint, but it draws a very hard line. The definition of a professional is managing those feelings without dumping them on the children in your care.
That is the emotional intelligence piece. It's not about not having feelings. It's about what you do with them.
It is. And the trap, it's a dangerous trap, is blaming the child for your stress, using language like, you are making me angry. No, they aren't. They are being children. You are feeling angry. The feeling belongs to you.
That is a huge distinction. It takes responsibility off the child and puts it back on the adult.
The source warns against punishing a child for what it calls the practitioner's shortcomings of emotions. If you snap at a child or grab them too roughly because you have a headache, or because you fought with your partner that morning, or because you are just burnt out, that's not discipline, that is abuse.
So what is the strategy? How does a teacher in that moment stop themselves from exploding?
Step one, according to the source, and, well, all of psychology, is to recognize your triggers. Know what sets you off. Is it high-pitched noise? Is it the mess? Is it when a child says no to you?
For me, it's the whining noise. That frequency just drills right into my brain and my patience evaporates.
Okay, so you know that about yourself. That's a huge piece of self-awareness. So when you hear that whining noise, a red light should go off on your internal dashboard. Warning, I am being triggered. My nervous system is activating.
Okay, step 2.
The pause. This is the holy grail of self-regulation. Between the trigger, the whining, and your typical reaction, the shouting or snapping, there is a split second of time. You have to learn to widen that gap.
How?
Take a breath. A literal, deep belly breath. It sends a signal to your nervous system to calm down. Count to 10. Walk to the window and look at a tree for 5 seconds. Take a sip of water. Do whatever tiny thing you need to do to bring your own frontal lobe back online before you react.
You can't co-regulate a child if you are dysregulated yourself.
You can't calm a storm if you are a hurricane. It is impossible. And the source mentions a crucial third strategy: seek support. This is vital.
The tap out.
Yes. In a well-functioning ECCE center, there should be a culture where you can say to a colleague, I am really losing my patience with Timmy right now. My tank is empty. Can you please swap with me for 5 minutes while I go splash some water on my face?
And that shouldn't be seen as a weakness.
No, that should be seen as the height of professionalism. That is you proactively protecting the child from your own stress. It's a safety measure, just like having a fire extinguisher.
I really hope the students listening to this take that to heart. Asking for help isn't failing. It's leading by example.
It really is.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's just try to summarize this entire journey for someone who's been taking notes.
Okay. We started with the hard legal reality. Corporal punishment, hitting, pinching, shaking, but also neglecting, withholding food, is illegal and criminal in South Africa. The traditional view that justifies violence is no longer an acceptable defense.
Then we moved from the law to the philosophy of dignity. Every single child, no matter how small or how challenging their behavior, has inherent worth. Our job is to treat them as people, not objects.
Yeah.
To avoid shaming and humiliating them at all costs.
Then we reframed behavior. We stopped calling it naughty and started seeing it as developmental. We looked at the neuroscience of why fear shuts down the learning brain.
And then we opened the toolkit of positive discipline. Not permissive, but firm and caring. We talked about prevention through routine, redirection, emotional labeling, modeling respectful behavior, and using logical consequences instead of punishments.
And finally, we looked in the mirror. We acknowledged that being a practitioner is hard and requires deep inner work. It requires self-regulation, knowing our triggers, and asking for help.
You know, the source ends with a thought that I found really, really inspiring. It elevates the job from babysitter or teacher to something much, much bigger.
Nation builder.
Yeah. It suggests that by practicing positive discipline, you aren't just managing a classroom of 20 kids. You are modeling the fundamental values of a future society.
Think about it. If you teach children that problems are solved with violence and fear, they grow up to be adults who solve problems with violence and fear. If you teach them that problems are solved with empathy, negotiation, and self-control,
they grow up to be citizens who can participate in a democracy, who respect the dignity of others.
The source puts it beautifully. If we want a society that respects human rights, we have to start by respecting the rights of the smallest humans.
You cannot hit and shame a child for the first 5 years of their life and then expect them to magically become a peaceful, respectful, democratic adult at age 18. It starts in the nappies. It starts in the sandbox.
It starts with you.
That is the mission.
Sure.
If you are listening to this and you are studying to be an ECCE practitioner, you are on the front lines of this change. You are doing the hard, often thankless work of breaking generational cycles of trauma.
It is a huge responsibility. It is exhausting. But it is also probably the most important job in the world.
Thank you for stepping up to do it. And thank you for listening to The Deep Dive.
Goodbye.
See you next time.